Wow, there is a lot to uncover from these last three chapters. And I wasn't able to talk about it before, but I am now. And I'm not going to talk about them individually. I think you all know what I'm here to talk about. But I will give, like, brief summarizations of what happened earlier on. Because the build up to the recent chapter is incredible. And, like I said, there's a lot to discuss. But before that, I do want to congratulate Kagurabachi for reaching 1 million in circulation. Like, it's only been a little over a year, and it already has 1 million, which is incredibly impressive. The series has a bright future. Nothing more needs to be said. I've said this a billion times already, and I'm going to keep saying it. There's no axe. That's done. Nothing to worry about. And I hope nobody's thinking about that anymore. It's done. Now we can just focus on the manga, focus on the storytelling, and just enjoy everything Hogazono is cooking up. Along with, speaking of Hogazono cooking something up, he actually showed us the new volume cover, which looks very beautiful, by the way. So, I can't wait to get my hands on this whenever it's released here in the US. But, yeah. Great stuff for Kagurabachi. Now let's move on to the chapter itself. Or rather, chapters. Now, starting off with chapter 56, the whole chapter really focuses on Samura and the ninjas that are protecting him. Throughout the chapter, we see a flashback of them doing their best to protect him, and really just trying to please all his needs. And he pretty much found that annoying. But it has some importance because it shows that Samura doesn't want anyone younger trying to protect him. He feels like he should be protecting them. And I thought that was noble, at least at the time I was reading this. Well, no, I still do. I think it's noble. He doesn't want anyone younger than him protecting him. He doesn't think the young should die. He feels like he should be the one that has to do all the hard work. Then there's also the case of Hakuri. He said that he didn't want to be the only one to risk his life, but as soon as he tries to help, he actually kind of falls down and nearly goes unconscious. Now Hakuri, as you all know, plays a pivotal role for later on, but for now, let me talk more about this chapter before I continue on to the next real quickly. So, as they're all fighting, Uruha and Samura are working together. The female ninja actually teleports them away, because they feel like it's their duty to protect them. It's more important to keep the sword bearers alive than having them stay there and, of course, die. That's the whole mission, to keep them alive. This upsets Samura. He's like, no, I don't want to be here. I'm going back in. But Uruha pleads with him. He's like, no, we gotta stay here. It's our duty. We can't let their sacrifice be in vain. And that's when we get a really cool moment with Hakuri. He's like, nah, don't worry about it. I'm gonna put us back in there. And they actually join back into the fight, and we get this amazing panel of Samura using his blade, summoning all these feathers with a beautiful, beautiful color spread. And it ends with Samura being like, you guys are fired. And that brings us to the end of 56. Now, chapter 57 is where everything goes off the rails. Like, the whole fandom was going crazy. And when I read it, I was losing my mind as well. Like, everybody was. Now, the chapter pretty much starts off with the fight seemingly being over. Everyone's done. Everyone's grouping up. And everyone's trying to figure out what to do next. Unfortunately, there was a casualty. Or rather, some casualties. We see one of the monks that happened to die in the battle that just happened. And Samura makes this interesting comment, and he's like, unfortunately, this is just a start. Which is extremely foreboding. And admittedly, I didn't think of it when I read it at this point, but as I continued to keep reading, man, did it actually mean a lot. So now with Chihiro and Hirohiko, they're both having a discussion about, well, all the information that Chihiro wants out of him. And that's when Hirohiko brings up some really interesting stuff. He talks about how their plan isn't really working out the way they want to, but it's really just changes the path. The destination's still the same. And Chihiro's like, you don't have a lot of options. Like, we won't let a single contracted bearer die. And Hirohiko's like, right, you have to protect those heroes. Huh. And this is exactly why Yuta called you green. And then he starts talking about how whether Chihiro has ever heard of a school. And you're like, that's what they teach there. It's a cozy place where neither of us belong. They teach that the swordmaster and all the contracted sword bearers are heroes, like Konoshige Gurukahira. The swordmaster led the other 5 sword bearers in protecting the people with the great power of the enchanted blades. and their wonderful achievements led to peace in this country. And Chihiro's like, yeah, that's what I was taught too. And he's like, no, when it came to the Shunichi, Dad always clammed up about the Swordmaster too. Everything I learned about the Shunichi came from books. So, even Chihiro's knowledge is limited on that front. And then Hirohiko's like, you only have surface level knowledge, right? You know, you witnessed the Shunichi's power at the Yodakuzaichi, didn't you? And Chihiro's like, what are you getting at? And that's when Chihiro starts remembering the auction and fighting Kyoto. And of course, you know, us as people who read the story, we know that it wasn't the blade that was controlling Kyoto, but it was actually the Swordmaster. It seemed pretty obvious reading it at the time. So it wasn't really the sword's influence, it was the Swordmaster's influence. And now, you know, a lot of this are like pieces that are strong, like they're starting to connect, but Chihiro doesn't have everything connected yet. And he's starting to get really confused, and he's like, it's been non-stop today, my brain is totally in disarray. So he's having trouble figuring everything out, and he's just really exhausted. But Chihiro ends up asking the question, are you saying that the Swordmaster isn't a hero that should be protected? And that's when Hirohiko drops the bomb, and he's like, at least that's what Samura thinks. That's why he made a pact with Yuta 3 years ago. And reading this, I was like, I can't believe it. Like, Samura actually made a pact. There has to be something off, right? Like, maybe there's some context that we don't understand. There's no way he'd be a traitor. And, you know, my thoughts aside, that's when I keep reading, and Chihiro's like, if the Shunichi is released and you guys are able to use it, you'll destroy the country. So to keep that from happening, and that's when Hirohiko interrupts him, and he's like, we can't let any of the contracted sword bearers die. Yeah, you keep saying that. Things are already in motion. I get why you're all fired up. You know what Samura said? The contracted sword bearers should die. And Chihiro's just getting confused. He doesn't really know what to believe or what to think about. And he's like, look, don't think about it too hard. We just gotta fight each other to the death, right? And that's when the chapter ends with Kumuyuri, Uruha's blade, showing up in front of Hirohiko. Hirohiko manages to just rip his arm off, and he manages to hold onto the blade with his mouth, and he summons like 2 puppets. And that's when Chihiro's just in complete shock, like he doesn't know what to make of this. And I didn't notice this reading it the first time, but yeah, it looked like he was being teleported away, or something was being teleported to him. So, like, my brain was completely scattered, just as much as he was. I was like, could Samura actually be the traitor? And I was like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would he betray them? And what benefit would he have working with Yuta? It just wasn't adding up. So I was like, I'll wait for the next chapter, and maybe, and hopefully they could confirm what's going on. And yeah, they basically do. So, finally, let's talk about the newest chapter, chapter 58. Now we focus on what happened 7 minutes earlier. Now, here I'm mostly going to just talk about the big plot points, because I'm sure all of you know what happened, and I just want to get to it already. So, basically, we get a good view of Hakuri. He's really tired, and he's about to be knocked out. Which he is, briefly. But by the time he awakens, everyone else is also knocked out. And he's witnessing Uruha and Samura talking to each other. And Uruha's like, what's the meaning of this? Like, what's going on, Samura? He's like, have you gone mad? And Samura's like, I'm perfectly sane, Uruha. Since you got here, we haven't had a proper chance to talk. Listen, say we keep this up and recover all the enchanted blades. Does that solve anything? If it were that simple, Rokuhira wouldn't have needed to lock away the enchanted blades after the war. I haven't held the enchanted blade, Tobi Moon, in 18 years. If I'm to wield this again, in Konoshige is Rokuhira's name, I have to root out evil and protect the weak. And Uruha's like, right, that's why we need the sword to fight the Hishaku. They killed Mr. Rokuhira. They're evil. And he's like, yes, but there is an evil far filthier than Hishaku that must be punished, even if it takes colluding with the Hishaku. And I was like, there is no goddamn way. There's no way this man actually, he's been working with the Hishaku the whole time. Him talking to Yuta 3 years ago actually was legitimate. He's been working with them the whole time. I cannot believe it, bro. And I'm just shocked, bro. Like, I've been praising Samura. The whole fandom has. But to see him go this route is just, it's just really sad, man. And I'm not even done yet. Moving on, he's like, I'm talking about us, the sword bearers, Uruha. 18 years ago, we covered up what happened there. And as he's talking, we see that, yeah, Hakuri's been eavesdropping this entire time without either of them noticing. Probably because he's really too weak to notice, or maybe because Samura assumes that he's knocked out. Either way, they don't know. But moving ahead, Samura comments on all of the crimes that got buried, and how Rokuhira and the rest of them were labeled as heroes. And he basically accepted it if that's what it meant to keep, society restored. And right now, like, a bunch of youngsters are dying on their behalf. And yeah, he doesn't feel like they should. Like, their deaths versus ours are just deserts. There's no need to weigh the two, is there? All 5 sword bearers, including me, will die by my hand. Unlike the Hishaku, with Tobimune, I can slay just sword bearers and spare the protectors. And Iruha starts freaking out. He's like, but if you kill me, the Hishaku will be able to use the Kumayuri. Is that what you want? They're the ones who killed Rokuhira. And Samura starts saying, I'll only let them use it briefly to kill the Swordmaster. After that, I'll kill them all. I won't let them do harm with the enchanted blades. In fact, it's a convenient way to smoke out all the blades. I told you, I intend to root out evil. And I'm just thinking to myself, right, before I even continue reading the rest of this, he's lost his absolute mind. Like, he's gone. And I know, like, a lot of people are confused, betrayed, and disappointed. But when you think about this, when comparing to, soldiers who've had PTSD in war and stuff like that, a lot of logic can be thrown out the window. Like, their trauma plays a bigger role than anything else. Like, once you're a part of that, that affects you for life. That doesn't go away. And I feel like that's basically what Samura's become. He's become extremely regretful and full of absolute trauma over everything that's been going on since the war. And the fact that people are protecting him, people who are much younger than him protecting him and dying, he doesn't think that's right. He feels like it'd be much easier if all of them just died. And I guess I can't fault him for that logic, but at the same time, they're also sword bearers. Like, Iruha wasn't wrong. Like, giving the blades to the enemy and assuming that you'd be able to take all of them out, that's ridiculous. Like, it's flawed logic, but I get it. It is flawed. There's really no convincing Samura at this point. He's basically just gone past the point of any return. And it's just really sad to see, especially considering, like I've said before, like, me and the fandom and everyone, like, we really liked Samura. We were looking up to him, and we were hoping to see more of him. And, I mean, shit, I guess we are going to see more of him, but not in the way any of us anticipated. And now, moving back to the chapter itself, Uruha is talking about how, yeah, he had people die for him too, but he can't just throw away his life, because I guess their sacrifices would be meaningless. Like, they have to keep going, for the sake of the people that already sacrificed their lives for them. And, oh my god, Hakuri's still hearing everything, and he can't even stand up. And yeah, Hakuri realizes that, yeah, Mr. Uruha is going to be killed all because he transported his blade. And, dude, that must suck, bro. But how would Hakuri have known? This is not on him, bro. But the guilt he must be feeling is just, it must be unlike any other. And then that's when Samura and Uruha begins their battle. And this is just heartbreaking because we all know how it ends. And we get this panel where Uruha is struck down, and Hakuri just witnesses the whole thing, and he says, it's my fault. If only I had pushed myself and transported Kumayuri. No, I gotta think quick. I gotta do something. And Uruha, just dying on the floor, says, you're going to shoulder all of that alone? And Samura's like, yes. Nobody else has to endure this hell. And the chapter ends with the title of the chapter being right there, Reunion. Uruha dead on the floor, Samura putting away his blade, and Chihiro witnessing everything. And Samura says, you sure are drenched in the stench of blood, Chihiro. Oh my god. I can't begin to just feel so messed up about everything that I just read, bro. Like, don't get me wrong, these chapters have been incredible. Like, no joke, no meme, nothing. These have been quite a ride for the entire fandom. And this is the type of shakeup that's going to be remembered for a very long time in Kagurabachi's history. But reading all of this live, seeing Samura act this way, it hurts, bro. It really does. And this changes a lot for not just this arc, but what's going to happen way later on. Like, how is this battle going to end? I don't really see Chihiro beating Samura. I don't really see it. And I know there's some people in the fandom that are like, well, Aruha's death hasn't been completely confirmed. He could be alive. And maybe? I don't want to rule out his death just yet, but knowing Kagurabachi and knowing how strong Samura is, I'm not getting my hopes up for that. And I don't think I'm going to get my hopes up for Chihiro really getting away with this unscathed. Now, I don't think Samura is going to kill him, because he doesn't want to kill him. He doesn't want to kill anyone that's younger than him. He only wants to focus on the Sword Master, the rest of the sword bearers, and the Hishaku. But as for Chihiro, he's probably going to give him one hell of a beating, but after that, he's just going to leave him alone. And with Hakuri basically beat up, yeah, there's really nothing he can do in this situation. So, Samura is basically going to become a big antagonist moving forward, so Yuta is not the only person he needs to worry about, and that makes this huge, bro. And can I also mention the fact that, you know, how much of a threat the Sword Master must be for Aruha to let Yuta and the rest of the Hishaku deal with it? Like, that's also very worrying, because we saw what the Sword Master did to Kyoto. So what the hell is this man capable of if he's allowed to leave freely and do whatever he wants? Like, Samura seems to think that this guy is a massive, massive deal. And I mean, of course, he wants to kill all of the sword bearers, but there must be something about the master that just must be really terrifying compared to everybody else. But yeah, we're in for one hell of a wild ride moving forward. And with that, I've basically said a lot of what I already wanted to share. If I keep going, the video is going to go on too long. So for now, let me know what you guys think. Comment below what you think about the traitor and all the details that came about these last 3 chapters. And what could happen next, because, I mean, there's a lot we could speculate about, to be honest. So, feel free to share that below. Now, that'll do it for me. Here's looking forward to the next chapter. Once again, congratulations to Kagurabachi for reaching 1 million circulation. He's hoping for 1 million more, or, well, a lot more, moving ahead. So, that's it for now. Peace out. Take care. And he's looking forward to the next chapter, everyone.